And why don't we have more areas of silence in Figueira? For us to name an area as an area of silence needs to correspond to what happens there, and for you to maintain an area of silence as such permanently, it's necessary to have only a few people, because people have different ways of walking, speaking, acting, thinking, because the strongest noises are in the thoughts. And those areas of silence, it's to compensate certain disharmonies and excess of noise that sometimes happen without us wanting to. And these areas also stimulate so that other areas may manage to achieve a level of harmony and silence more improved. But this is all not just a learning experience, but a fact of evolution of people, because it's useless to say, be quiet, watch out your conversation, be careful with your movements. It's all theoretical, and people repress to achieve that, and as they do it, mentally they make more noise than they used to. And in the mental plane, they used to have more disorder than in the physical when they were making noises. So it's useless to repress these things because they will get worse. In the mental plane, it will be more noisy. And if this goes to the astral plane and mental plane, it's as if there were nuclei of repression, lack of balance, and they remain there to be dissolved. So this is the work that we should do with patience, and each one must know that each movement that you do, each gesture, each word that they pronounce, each thought they emit, each movement, emotional movement that they do, they must know that all this influences and forms waves in space, creates an aura. So if the individual is producing a calm aura, all those who approach, they enter that aura or touch that calm aura, and immediately they calm down. They have some influence to remain calm, and nobody said anything, no one was worried. A person is in a certain state and balance and harmony. Everything that is approaching around will feel it, and if those enter that aura somehow, that will produce a stronger result. And this is very important to happen in the mind also, because in our mind aura, people from the other side of the world could enter. They don't need to be present here. Those who are present have their mind body with them. So one is responsible for the balance of the other's mental body, but it gets in contact with any other mental body. So this work for us to remain in balance should be kept, because as the mental body, the astral body, and even the etheric body are in contact with other bodies in different situations, so our work is continuous. It's not because you felt harmonious at that moment that the work is done. You felt harmonious, but then suddenly you are in contact with a settled body that is not in harmony, then you have to go back and do your work. You must always do that work. And this area between the physical, the astral, and the mental is also very important. This almost physical place, this etheric place. So noises, sounds, disorderly movements, they will all disorganize this etheric field. And we could say that it's physical, it's very close. That etheric field receives from the hierarchies, from the forces of nature, a work directly, a direct and indirect work. A hierarchy could serve, a hierarchy could help us in the very elevated plane, and the extension of that acts on this etheric. So if the hierarchies work in Abda, if that etheric is not organized, if that etheric body is not welcoming, it cannot receive that reflection, the reflection of that work. So the work is only internal when it could also be physical. It could reflect in our material level. Sometimes you see a being that is learning how to work up there, and that reflects little here because the condition of the etheric does not allow it to go through, doesn't let it be imprinted in the physical of the individual in gestures, behavior, in attitude. And we can collaborate a lot with this if we keep a harmonious attitude in the physical plane, in the physical level, if we maintain some order, subtlety, if we maintain balance and harmony in all senses, not only organizing things, but with our gestures, our behavior, our presence, our way of speaking. In the mental, you already know this, but in the physical, it's also important because this moves the etheric body, and if that body is not in that condition, it won't reflect, it won't absorb all the inner work that is being done. And that etheric, it corresponds to the physical, it determines the conditions of the physical, certain natural forces, certain forces of nature, even construct things that work with the plant kingdom, forces that work with the mineral kingdom, certain parts of our body. Those forces are in the etheric plane. So if this room is disorganized, if these chairs are all, if this is all dirty and disorganized, the etheric is in the same conditions. The etheric accompanies that. So a harmonious elemental that could be in there won't be able to be there because it's in disorder. Sometimes people don't value this much because they don't know these things, so they throw their towel, they leave a door open when it should be closed, they keep it closed when it should be open. They don't know these things, so they don't think this is important, but we should give importance. And it should be a place where Devas lived. Many years ago, I was traveling, and it was a long trip. And for some moments I entered a convent, and when I entered it, it was as if they had put me in a place for reorganization. I went within there and it was all organized as if the trip didn't exist. My body's entered a balance as if I hadn't done such a long trip, and I felt it right after. It was the most orderly house I've ever seen until today. The floor would speak, the walls would speak to me. They would express themselves about the order and the precision. There was nothing out of place. It is some order that speaks to us, that it's alive. There's a different expression of life. And of course that people who live in a place like that have a different posture, a different way of speaking, a different way of sitting, a different way of making gestures, of walking. It's a different vibration. And we can't achieve it in the physical plane. We have environments that are very good for these things, because they are environments where there are not a lot of people walking. It's limited. The place is surrounded by plants. The windows are big. There's sun coming in. There's everything for this to take place, and we should be more dedicated to this and not think that we are so busy that we don't have time to do this. Because sometimes we think, oh, I'm so busy, I'm dealing with so much, I have to answer so many things that I don't have time to maintain this in order physically. Forgetting that when you are in order physically, they don't need to work that much, because the environment, the vibration of the place, the air, the light, all of that will do more than us, because this enters, this marks the individual, it produces an impact on the individual, and the etheric part, which is basically physical, is used by the hierarchy to neutralize the disharmony of humanity, because humanity is in disharmony. If you sum everything, the highways, everything, sports, stadiums, and if that wasn't neutralized, the planet would have lost its balance in space. So it's in this etheric field of what we're speaking of, that's where balance is maintained. So if there is some etheric harmony here, it's here in the physical plane somehow. It's maintaining, sustaining this physical plane. But if this is not in harmony, that will be up there. And for us to capture that, to notice, to receive it, we should be up there. We need to be concentrated up there, because this cannot go in. But this has different repercussions. Everything that takes place in this etheric, which is almost physical, this lack of harmony reflects the karma of each one who is there. It's not like there's only in the plane of energy, it also has repercussions in karmic life, in karma, so that this harmony in a karmic way is divided by all those who were there. Even if the one who is the responsible will have the biggest part of that karma. So with time, that can accumulate, and then the etheric of the person cannot organize themselves anymore, because they kept the karma of that disorderly environment. So they won't have etheric control soon, because it's disorganized. All the physical effects that this could produce. Here we have 3 questions. One is, what is the role of researchers in the current context of Figueira? Because here we have a sector of researchers, as you know. So many medications and therapeutic procedures, it's a manifestation of the sector. And another one is the lab and the health and healing sector. It seems like it's the same, but it's not. There's the research sector, the laboratory, and the health and healing sector, which is something different. Here in Figueira, the research sector and the lab is under a coordination, and the sector health and healing is under a different coordination. It's not the same thing. These are 3 different sectors. We're going to see this better with practice, development of things, and life. So what is the role of researchers in the current context of Figueira? Researchers have a role to do for the human kingdom, the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, the mineral kingdom, and eventually with the Devic kingdom too. So the research sector deals with all of these kingdoms from the point of view of research. In human kingdom, research must help in our collaboration. So the work of research with the human kingdom is to find, discover, create ways . See, we're not talking about medications or therapeutic procedures. It could be, but it could be different ways for us to be more subtle. If beings become more subtle, interiorized through the searches that this sector does and presents to us so that it can be applied, of course, that medications are included and a lot of procedures, but it's not just that, and it's up to the sector that helps us becoming subtle. And in the human kingdom, this sector of research could also collaborate not only with our examination, but with the work of incarnated souls. Each one sees how we're going to collaborate with these incarnated souls. So the research sector could even be about music or construction. It's open. It depends on the beings who will compose this. Depends on the beings who will live this proposal of collaborating with incarnated souls. So this sector, these researches and realities, they will act both in the physical body with certain researches. It could also, with our psychic, there could be a work of help in our psychic structure, and it's up for the research to say what it is, what that work is. Certain medications that the sector, they're already dealing with our psychic. There are certain medications and they're starting to deal with that, but the research sector could also find different ways of helping ourselves. In the animal kingdom, the research there could be research in the field of animals and the ways to keep animals here or treat animals or feed animals, heal animals, so that they may remain. It's up to the sector of research to find certain potentials of plants and use these potentials for the good of human kingdom, the animal kingdom, the mineral kingdom, and Devas kingdom. How will the research sector help? By seeing the potential of plants, it will discover the potential of minerals and use it to help the other kingdoms. So there could be things of plants and minerals that will help the mineral kingdom, the waters. So the research sector with the mineral kingdom could find a formula for our lakes to be clean, healthy, like water, how to deal with that water, what to help to change that water to be transformed, purified. There's all the sector of researchers. There's a series of researchers for different. This is from the sector of research with the waters, so it's a very broad sector that has a lot of things open yet, even though. But the second question is, how can the laboratory collaborate with this? Because it's a different sector. Laboratory is used not only, it's also used about both the researches and the healing. So the laboratory is there not only for medications, it could be there for things of the mineral kingdom, the waters, the human kingdom, the Devic kingdom. So sometimes it's not just physical or material. So if beings that represent that laboratory, or if the beings that rule that lab, if they become a lab where the energy will start to work, that work will be more complete. If the beings in charge of the lab are not a lab themselves, it's just like any other lab. The difference is that it's not just a material lab that is there for transformation for things. Or the beings who are there must also, because what the other part of the laboratory does, which is about transformation in general, and not only the work with medications, people do that, those who are in charge of it. Those are the ones. Then there will something happening in the physical laboratory about what is happening to them. So it's an effective Dutch but very symbolic act. And I've been noticing that people who need in your psychic, psychological processes and mental processes, if you are in contact with that laboratory, your transforming processes will accelerate because they will enter that orbit. As we know, energy is not lost. More energy is developed. If you don't use an energy that is here, but if you start using the energy here, that energy will reproduce. It will broaden. Energy does not diminish when you use it. Energy. So if you have, you will either remain in the terrestrial part of all the labs, or that will be the symbol of the laboratory that takes place to each one. So you could be having a chemical experience there, and it could be happening to you, or a process is being demonized for you. So those who are working there, the left work of the lab will broaden, and it will be a perfect part, but not because, but because they will deepen into it, because it's you there and you are in the lab. Your being is there. And this could be very close. Material transformation in the physical laboratory, and inner subtle transformation that each one must do and go through them. So this laboratory is a sector, is a field of work that is beyond medications and experiences. But that laboratory is a symbol for a transformation of lab work within people, and it could be in the level of purification according to the person, or could be at the level of sublimation, if that is what the person needs, or even a deep transformation depending on the need of when this hidden chemistry takes place within you. So those who are in charge of this laboratory should be a being or beings who are in this transformation, in this work of transformation, because a lab will be a good lab but nothing more. It won't work as a field of creativity to have some symbolic work while they're working there in that transformation of those elements, in those dynamizations. Something could take place within them. This is the energy of the lab. To help in this transformation of people, in the sublimation of certain things, if it's emotional, if it's other things. So all of that is the sector of laboratory. But what is the role of the laboratory in the nucleus or in the current context of healing in Figueira? The laboratory today is working in small rooms, a little separate from each other because it's different there, and it grew like that because in the beginning there wouldn't be a place for them. There was a room. So today they always go to the work of laboratory in the sewing. The role of that laboratory is to gather all that in one laboratory, in one environment. Otherwise there would be no reason to be there. There is a very good energy for subtle healing there. So the laboratory of subtle work, inner work, laboratory must develop a lot. On the point of view of vibrations, because in the sewing nucleus there's a lot of wind from all directions, the moon, the sun, so there's a vibratory climate that is ideal for a laboratory to transmute things, transform things, to sublime things. It's the ideal field for that. So all these energies and forces will be much more concentrated together there and much more coordinated. But we repeat, everything depends on the people who are involved in that, because otherwise you could have a good and organized laboratory and nothing else. And the work of that sector goes beyond it. A kitchen is a laboratory somehow, because you're manipulating food, you're transmitting something to the food, your vibration. So it won't stop being a laboratory. So food can revive, die, or maintain its qualities. But the sector of research is not something over it. As we We can't waste energy. So for these things to take place, we are the ones in need. We want it and we need it. Kitchen is something very delicate, you know. You put the vegetables on the table, could be worth a lot or not. It depends on how it was treated, harvested. There's the side of kitchen, which is not only to chest yourself. The work of in the kitchen with food and to be served. This is another very subtle point, because there are many ways of serving some food for those people. Is it in a way that they're less manipulated or more manipulated because that physical body needs some manipulated food? That's where you see kitchen. Kitchen has no rule, so at a certain time the person would have to be helped to be hungry, because those who eat without feeling like it, they don't have the same result. It's the work of the kitchen to make people feel good. Eating, it depends a lot from person to person. Of course, they're cooking for a lot of people. It's not the same than cooking for one. But you can all find balance in all this. The sector healing and health is in charge of health and healing. Health is something very close, very physical, material. It depends on a lot of psychological, physical things. Healing is different. Healing is not the emotion of something that could come back. It's the solution of a situation. So you only having health is not enough. You should be in contact with healing so that those things don't come back in you. And that healing has a very extensive sense. It could be the healing then you'll be really healed when you are transmitting your vehicle, you are channeling your superior energies. This is healing, because where your superior energies go through, that will be transformed. So healing comes from physical. It's a sector that is not only about. If the sector is filled with diseases all the time, it hasn't shown what it came to do yet, because the minimum part of the body should be diseases, and most of the day should be healing. So it's a sector that will find when healing
Então, o setor saúde e cura deve ter elementos muito internos, muito sutis, para poder trabalhar com a cura.
So they must have a lot of subtle elements. They should have contacts with the hierarchy in the relationship with the Devic area. It's part of healing. So it's a sector that has a lot to develop.
Mas nós precisamos necessitar, precisamos querer, e precisa também que seja o momento planetário destas coisas acontecerem. E nós estamos dentro de planeta.
Because we are within a planet, and these things also take place within the cycles of the planet. So we must have all of this before us, but without worries. Not thinking that it depends on us. It depends on cycles on the planet, in humanity, the group. It depends on the individual cycles, people. The more present and the more we keep this in mind, things will develop better. And many times in this balance, sometimes it's a person that will visualize this correctly, but those who will realize it's not them. They're good for visualizing, but not good for doing. Will then they notice something? Will they understand? I came to this level of understanding, and others will understand it. So theoretically I could know how to clean a vegetable, but I could have never been to Earth. And if I clean vegetables, maybe I won't clean it properly, but I should understand how to clean it properly. It's not something, these are not personal things. This is a plan, a whole. In this field, if we're trying to capture some idea and bring it down here, place our intention for this to be fulfilled.
Isto mexe com este reino paralelo, com o reino dos Devas. Então isto produz uma resposta.
So this produces an answer in the inner kingdoms. So it's very important the service of those who listen, understand, accept, love. Keep that within their hearts. This is the fundamental service. Without this, nothing would be consistent. Because the parallel kingdoms who are within there. What would be of us without those peppermints? Plants are the same without them or filled with them. These parallel kingdoms are very sensitive to what takes place to us, not only what we do, but what goes through us, what is happening with us. You take care of a tree, a plant. It takes different proportions. But if the Deva I don't know if that would have happened with that energy. Something different starts to act there, so everything that we were doing externally, that there's a tree that in previous times it used to be the part of a fence, so there would be some sharp irons, and they put it on the tree as a fence. And when we got here, we found it. Then we removed those irons, that fence from the tree, and liberated the tree from the fence. And then the tree started to change. And today it's a young tree. It seemed like the tree was dying. And today it's one of the most luminous trees we have here. But when we removed that fence from its trunk, it seems like it's nothing. Materially, maybe it's not much, but there's something different. When there were the inclusion of that tree in a certain work, the inclusion of the mother, surely the devas of that tree returned, besides the life of the tree. But the devas in these strong transformations, they're always present, because matter goes up to a certain point, and to go further, devas are necessary. Devas are the natural forces of nature, and the etheric planes, they even have forms of beings, but they are natural forces, forces of nature in different levels, and which have contacts with the true roles for things, so it could be. But we can't have a model for trees. A tree that is developing in your hands before you knowing what's... The Deva knows everything from the beginning, so you work for many reasons for the tree, but you can't lead it to be what it should be because you don't know that model, and the Deva knows it. So everything that the Deva does to the tree is to take it to the model of God for it. It's a very necessary kingdom, because then you work in the best way, and if that kingdom is there with you, most work is not useless, because you don't have that function, but the Deva has it. So if it comes to work with it, all your work will be enriched by it. What brings their work is the purity of intentions and our respect for that which we're dealing with, our respect for the plant, our respect for the earth, and for the other kingdoms of nature, because they are a kingdom of nature. The Devic kingdom is a kingdom like the others. Human purity, if you're working in a garden just to explore it, there will be a kind of Devas and a kind of work, but if you're in a garden thinking, acting and working for the realization of the plant kingdom, there will be evolved Devas working with you from other evolutions, so that garden will be something different. That garden won't be just vegetables. That garden will have qualities that you were not the one to transmit it. It was the Devas. There's something else there. We say it that an earth is not good, that we can't plant something because there's a lot of rocks. We see things this way. This is not a problem for the Deva kingdom, because things a tree does not show up because the earth has a lot of nutrients. Of course it helps, but the tree emerges because its model chose that place for it to grow, so you should know how to receive it. And everything that you do materially, here in these lands there are adult ancient trees that were supposed to be dead, and they're living years and years more because they are happy, you see, because they are feeling some plan.
Se você se dispõe a servir, tudo pode acontecer. O ponto de partida para lidar com estas coisas é você estar resolvida a servir. Quanto mais desinteressadamente possível. É aí que o processo começa. O processo começa no teu grau.
The process begins in your degree of disposition, availability, and personality. According to your self-giving, process will begin from that and go forward.